All right. Good evening, everyone, or good morning wherever you are. It's evening in my house in Brisbane. Welcome to the COVID conversations, and I don't mean to put anyone else's COVID conversation on the back burner, but without putting any pressure on my guest, I am very, very excited, intrigued, and very eager for this one. With me on my left is a woman that probably hardly any of my mates know. And to be honest, I've only really had about 4 or 5 conversations with her, but I feel over the last couple of conversations, I've gotten to know her very well. And over the next hour, I'm going to get to know her much better. And I think she has something for us that maybe a lot of people, you can maybe read it in a book or watch it on a YouTube clip. But when you're talking to somebody about it, makes a lot more sense, but we'll get into that later. So, Alexandra Gonsalves. Did I get it right? I got it?
Good job.
So, thank you very much for joining me, Alex. I know this took only a little bit of convincing, but I am very glad, I'm very grateful that you have chosen to do it. Very, very glad. So, my guest, Alex, is 27. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. My guest, Alex, is 27. She is a Southsider, born and bred. However, she's defected now these days, living on the north side. She's had a little bit going on with her life, which we will get into. She works with my wife, and she is quite the prankster, but we will get into that a little bit more even later. Let's just say if you have those old age headphones that you still plug in to machines, don't have Alex anywhere near them because she may just decide to cut the cords. Is that right? Use the damn pods. All right, guys, I will just give a warning before we get started. This podcast will have discussions about mental health. It will have discussions about people going through hard times. So if at any time you feel that is you and maybe it's a little bit too much, please, by all means, get in touch with people who you love dearly, any support agencies like Lifeline, Beyond Blue, or any of those. And please do the right thing and get the help that you need, not the help that other people say you might need, and do what needs to be done. But anyway, the barbecue intro. It's Thursday night, and tomorrow's a public holiday. So I've done the unthinkable, and I have a quiet one here. And I think I saw you maybe had a sneaky one in there. Is that true?
Well, it was in a vodka cruiser bottle, and I just poured it out, and now it's in the glass. But
and
yeah,
here he is drinking the can. Mm-hmm. All right. The barbecue intro. Hello, my name's Kyl. What's your name? Tell us a bit about yourself, champion. Go.
Me.
Yeah, you.
I'm Alex. As I said before, I am 27. I have a partner. His name is Jordan. We've been together for about 5.5 years. We have 2 dogs. We foster dogs. I have a horse. I work in a fast-paced role in real estate with an awesome team. I have struggled with PTSD and depression and mental health. And yeah, I'm in a totally different place now and here having this conversation.
So let's like I know we've already spoken offline, but I guess Alex, for everyone, let's do the abridged version of where and how you got to where you are today and what I guess you've been through maybe in the last 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. So in 2015, so I'm from a family of 4 kids, 2 parents, obviously, 2 sisters, 1 brother, mum and dad. And in 2015, my dad committed suicide and I found him. He had hung himself. after finding out that his, I guess, marriage had broken down, and 2 years prior to that, he had lost his business that they had been running for over 10 years and had to sell our family home as well. So after that, I guess everything's a little bit of a blur for a little while. It's something that I obviously clearly still get emotional about. After that event, I started to realize, I thought I was doing okay at the time, but looking back, it was like a complete nightmare. It took me probably 2 to 3 weeks to process what had actually happened. And then probably five years to date, plus there's going to be a longer journey through my life, processing it and dealing with it and recognizing what's going on. I had severe PTSD, depression and anxiety. I would come home from work, I would go straight to bed after taking 2 Xanax, Valium. I tried antidepressants. I tried to go to the doctor after a little while, and no one really seemed to sort of care. I felt whilst I was in a relationship and, you know, I have a very, very supportive partner, I didn't want to be here. I just didn't. And that's still hard to talk about because I still go through waves of feeling like that, but it's certainly something that I have begun to recognize, and I know that there's no cure for it. It's learning to process it and recognize it, and knowing how to look after yourself and be kind to yourself and practice gratitude, and allowing yourself to feel those emotions and try not to just cut them off, or drown them in substance or alcohol or, you know, the different things that people do. The years, I suppose, following, I guess I'll just go through like a bit of a timeline. I was working in administration and I just found that my job didn't challenge me enough. So then I opted to go into sales in real estate, which was an awesome challenge because I could put all my energy into it and I could focus on that, and it took the focus off of what was going on over here, but it didn't really fix anything. I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make. My dream of being a top salesperson didn't come to fruition. I wasn't any good at it. I felt like a failure, and I felt like I was giving up on something that I had really promised Dad that I would do, because we spoke about it before he died. And then from that, I went into being a business development manager in real estate. And that's where I really flourished and began to enjoy my job. However, I suppose through that journey, I had all of these things still going on, with still feeling anxious, still having panic attacks, having fights with my partner that I just didn't need to have, that were totally unnecessary, feeling insecure, again, not being kind to myself and not being grateful, and just being in a really toxic place. And I remember at the time, I didn't think, like, I thought I was doing okay. Like, I thought, you know, I could be a lot worse, but looking back, it was pretty bad. There was one instance where I'd contemplated suicide probably 3 or 4 times, of, you know, putting a rope in the back of my car, and driving around, and that's all I could think about. Whether I was prepared to do it or not, it was still there, and it was still in my mind, and it was still a reoccurring thought that I just didn't feel like I could get away from. And then it just got that bad that I just went, I can't keep living like this. Like, I can't keep doing it, and you can hear it in my voice. I get emotional because at that point I was either something's got to change or I got to go. And whilst I had a partner and a supportive network, I just didn't feel like I could express myself. I just didn't feel like people would understand me. I would cry myself to sleep. I would have nightmares. Some nights I couldn't sleep. Sometimes I was just really angry, and I felt that basically there was so many emotions going on. I just couldn't decipher or understand what they were. It was just overwhelming.
What was the point that you said enough? Like you said, you got to that point where you just went, that's it. Was there a moment? Do you remember that moment?
I do remember that moment. It's probably something that I haven't really shared with anyone. And this talks about self-harm. So there was an instance where I harmed myself. And as soon as I did it, it shocked me into going, wow, like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel very good.
It's not me.
Yeah. And then I went, I can't live like this anymore. I need help.
So what did you do?
I spoke to a friend of mine. Her name's Ashley. And she had referred a doctor to me that's just up the road from us. So I booked my appointment online. I didn't have to talk to anyone. I just booked it. And I went in and I said to the doctor, I need help. I'm scared I'm going to kill myself one day. And he said, okay, that's okay. We can help you. And sorry.
Sorry, man. Don't be sorry.
I went and I saw him once a week for about 5 weeks before we did anything. And just having that 15-minute appointment scheduled in once a week told me that he cared enough to get me to do that, and that he actually wanted to work with me, because previously I'd gone to the doctor and they were like, yeah, I have this script, or yeah, I have this. And I do take my hat off to doctors, and I think that they're really good at what they do. I just didn't find the right doctor for me. So he was really good. He got me on medication, and then prior to putting me on medication, I went and got a blood test. I was also low in iron. I've got an iron infusion. He checked all my levels, and he spoke about going to see a counsellor or a psychologist, and I said, I don't want to do that. I'm just not ready for that. I don't want to unpack all of it. So he helped me with medication, which was really what I needed, because I stressed myself so much. I think I created a real chemical imbalance in myself.
Yeah.
And then I started to go, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sit back and work out. I'm not going to force anything, because I've been doing that for the last 3 years and it's not working. I'm just going to sit back and work out what pulls my chest and what I feel excited about. And whenever I saw photos of horses, I would just remember, growing up with horses and riding, and how much I enjoyed it and loved it. And it was my thing, like it was my passion. And I got so far away from that's when I started to reach out to people. And I spoke to a lady called Jillian, and Jillian knew of a horse that needed to be ridden. So I went there and fell in love. And through obviously Jordan's support as well, we'd spoken about it, and I just needed it. And it was what I needed at that point in time. We bought him, and that's when I really started to get back to not my old self, because that person was gone, but just understanding who I was on the other side of it.
And what's this lovely gentleman's name? The horse that is?
Archie. I thought you were talking about Jordan. He's a lovely gentleman too.
I mean, of course.
Yeah, so and we also foster dogs. That's a really big thing for me because I really enjoy doing that. It's I wouldn't call it community work, but I would say it's not charity, but it's something bigger than us. It's not about us.
Yeah, there was a thing I read not long ago, and it said, no, it was like words to the effect of winning feels great, but helping someone or something feels just so much better inside. And you can see that, like, that's obviously something that's very therapeutic for you.
Mm.
And I guess, like you said, it's an outlet, but it's not to take your mind off it. Like, it's something that reminds you of the past. Like, I have stuff that from my childhood that I come back to that other people would look at and shake their head at, but you go, this reminds me of a time when things were really cool. So
Yeah.
why not hang on to that a little bit?
Yeah.
I am going to give you a moment to compose yourself a little bit, and we'll start getting into it a bit more. Okay, so the next question, and these are new questions for those avid COVID listeners. Alex is the first recipient of the new series of questions. 4 and 5 are new questions. If you could invite any 3 people, alive or dead, to your house for a barbecue, who and why? Go.
Oop, there's an alarm. So, number 1 would be my dad because I miss him and I would just love to hang out with him.
Yeah.
2
Mine's
would
at the top of
be,
my list.
yeah, I'd love to see him again. Like, I'd even have a beer, but we'd have a cigar as well. The other one is Anthony Robbins. I love him. I find him very inspirational. I find him very motivating. I think he's a massive wealth of knowledge and I really admire him.
Have you used a little bit of his stuff?
Yeah.
You?
Yeah. So I would also love to go to his the events that he has. So I don't think he's obviously holding one this year, but when they can hold them again, I'd love to go to one of those. But yeah, just listening to podcasts or audio can completely change your view and level you. And through the whole time that I was going through a hard time, I would listen to him and I would just feel at ease and I would have a spark, within myself. So I would love to spend time with him.
Okay.
And the third one is Jim Carrey. So I obviously grew up having him on my TV and he was hilarious in Ace Ventura and Liar Liar and all of those movies. He's hilarious. Like, I think he brings a lot of joy through humor, which I think is a really important thing as well, is laughter. I find really combats a lot of negative feelings.
Yeah.
And some of his speeches as well, I would listen to. And again, they would draw a massive spark within me and make me feel very inspired and very grateful. There's one that he did, and it was it's on YouTube, and there's a couple of different ones. I've got it here, but it's one where he's basically graduated and he's doing a speech.
He's speaking to a high school group. Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, and the things that he goes through in that, I've just always found very inspirational. So, whilst he's very lighthearted and fun, and he's also very deep and meaningful, and I think to be in that industry takes a lot of resilience and practicing of gratitude, because you get a lot of rejection as well.
When you I'll go back a little bit. So, like, you talk about, like, Anthony Robbins and Jim Carrey, like the stuff that they put up has helped you. like you said, in that first couple of years or even that first period, it was a bit of a blur for you as such. Like
Yeah.
when you had that point, like we spoke about, this is it, that's enough, it's time to get on it. Is that when you started to do that little bit of work yourself and look at the Anthony Robbins and that sort of thing? Like, you know, I can't be the only one that's going through this. There's got to be other people to draw on.
I'm quite lucky because the industry that I'm in is very proactive in putting that kind of information in front of you. And the company that I work for is obviously Coronis, and they do training days and those sorts of things where they would get people in. So I drew, I suppose, inspiration from those training days as well. But it was always something, and it's always been something that I had more of a piqued interest in, I suppose, is listening to that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And is it something you still do today? Like you would still, you know, every now and then you go, oh, I need to put this on, or because I mean, I know like we said on the phone when we spoke initially about setting this up, it's something I always say, you know, you will always have this for the rest of your life. It's just the difference is how you manage it. Are there still those days where you go, I need to do this today, so I need to get this done, so I need to, in order to move forward?
Yeah, this week, as we were saying, has been a pretty low week for me.
Do you accept it? Do you accept that I'm just having a shit week? Today is officially a shit week. You don't hate yourself for it. You don't go, oh, fuck, I've got nowhere. Or you just accept it?
Yeah, not anymore. I used to get very, very frustrated and angry and upset. And now I know that I have to be very accepting of myself, because what I have gone through and what a lot of other people go through, you know, they're not everyday things. So if I sit back and I go, okay, what's the bigger perspective on this? What can I do to put myself in a better position to have and as Chris Helder would say, a useful belief or a useful mindset, not a positive one, but because you can't always stay positive. Like I just don't. I think that that's a little bit bullshit. But for me, if I do the actions to put myself in a position where I can feel better, whether that's that I need to go to the gym and move, it's not about how I look, it's about creating that movement for my brain to work better, what I'm eating, what I'm listening to, what my thoughts are, and just step back and get hyper conscious on what I'm actually doing and what I'm doing to help me, because I think a lot of people worry so much about what's going on around them and what other people are doing and comparing themselves. I just found that if I focused on me and what I liked and what I liked to do, that I would be able to help me, because it's not about anyone else. But I think when you're in a good position and you're happy and feeling like you and your best self, you can help other people. But while your battery's drained as much as mine was, you're not a good friend, or I didn't feel like a good friend, partner, all those sorts of things. So I felt that build up of pressure. So I guess to alleviate that, I just come back to writing down my goals and reassessing where I'm at. I sit down and I go, what have I been eating? Like, how many times have I actually gone to the gym? How many times have I gone riding? And if you don't have riding, how many times have you gotten outside and sat on the grass or laid in the sun, or, you know, all of these things that are around us? I think, you know, whether you're on medication and that's helping you or not, I think you can't get away from putting your feet on the grass or in the dirt or in the sand and looking up at the sky and having the sun on you. You just can't not feel good about that.
So you think 5 odd years on, do you think now you're starting to, I guess, understand yourself probably more than ever?
Yeah, definitely.
Like you can, what would you say? You've got your own little checklist.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, you feel like shit today. Okay, what have I eaten? I've eaten crap. Okay, there it is. Or I've hardly slept. Or I haven't been for a ride in a week. I haven't been to the gym. So you've got your own little mental checklist now.
Yeah. And work's a big part of that for me. I've always, whatever I've done, I've always wanted to do well at, but I could never do well. Like I was just kind of one of those people who would float, and think about doing things but not do them.
Yeah.
And so I started doing, I suppose, that checklist. Work is obviously a thing on that checklist, and doing really well is very important to me. And I'm very competitive, and I don't like not being number one, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm also
Mm-hmm.
learning now that I have to separate the two and understand that it's more about the end goal, and not, it's more about how I feel and not about the recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not about them. It's about you.
Yeah.
So the next question, and this is another one of our new questions. I'm going to want to hear this. What advice would you give your 15-year-old self if you could sit them down one-on-one?
So I thought about this, and I thought back to when I was 15 and I was living at home, and I actually had the world at my feet, but I didn't see that. So, like, I remember people telling me that, but I never really understood it.
That
And
because this was just normal, and is this a thing in this, one of the books I read recently is that, how much our society of children take for granted everything that's there, maybe just not realizing how fucking lucky they are.
yeah, yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing. I was really privileged. I had a really good childhood. My parents were together. I grew up on acreage. I had horses, dogs, animals, guinea pigs, birds, fish, whatever. Went to a really great school. I didn't really go without. And then, whilst all that's great, I think when you're that age, you don't understand the gravity of what happens when people don't have that as well. And
Mhm.
as you get older, I think you start to understand the type of life that you want, and you start to think about that, whereas at that age you don't.
Yeah.
But I did write some things down, and I just did note form, but one of them would be to believe in yourself and not think that the weight of the world is on your shoulders.
Yeah.
um, Practice being grateful. So, back then I might have said, oh, these girls are being bitches to me, or I just don't feel good, or, just list all the negative things in my head. Whereas if I flipped that and started to have a mindset of gratitude, what would I then be writing down and listing in
Mm,
my head? So I guess um, when you're quite depressed, I suppose I'll use this as an example. It's almost like your head is rotting, whereas what you want in your mind is like green grass and flowers and butterflies and whatever. And whilst you can't always have that, I think from a young age, it's really important to develop and understand how to do that in your own mind. So when I was 15, I was very reactive and emotional, and probably very hormonal and slamming doors and, all that sort of stuff. um, but I wish that I wasn't so insecure and that I loved myself more,
yeah.
uh, and saw me for who I was in the mirror, actually, instead of looking at me and picking out everything that was wrong with me, because nothing was wrong with me.
Do you think, had you seen that stuff, would the Alex at 27 parallel universe be a little bit different? Do you think that may have prepared you a little bit more?
As in, like if I was 15 and had just been through that.
Yeah, or maybe just maybe, what'd you say, like, how you were talking about can't see the forest for the trees sort of thing.
Yeah.
Had you at any moment sort of stopped and gone, man, I am really lucky? Do you think maybe it would have been a bit of, would it have helped a little bit? Would it have not helped? Would it have not made any difference?
I think it would have grounded me a lot more and made me appreciate what I had. One of the biggest things that I didn't appreciate was the education that I had in front of me, and I didn't take advantage of that. And that's probably quite a big regret for me, is I worried about shit, and I should have been worrying about learning. My focus just was in the wrong place.
So that's advice you'd give to almost any 15-year-old girl, in honesty, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And then the other ones were keep active, eat good food, keep working hard, and save your money.
Because every 15-year-old kid does that.
Well, I got my first job at 13. So, yeah. And then I haven't been unemployed since. But I'd hate to add all that money up and work out exactly how much I did earn.
Yeah, I've been there.
Whilst you can enjoy yourself, I think just getting ahead before everyone else is. The mentality that I have when I started doing better at work was, I'm going to take what other people are doing and double it.
Mm.
So if someone's 20 and they're saving really hard, back then I wish I went, well, I'm 15. I'm going to start now and beat them, and just have that healthy competitive mindset.
You keep coming back to like your competitiveness or your drive with work. Now, I know, talking to a lot of people and myself as well, whenever we are sometimes going through a rough time, one of the most common things is people will immerse themselves in work. And a lot of people say, oh, you're just doing that to take your mind off something.
Yeah.
Would you stop and say to people, well, maybe that's a good thing, because would you rather I just sat on the couch at home and just pondered life's existence for 9 hours a day?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. I mean, if you're not working, what are you doing? When you stop working, what are you doing? Like I say, when people retire, it's not long after that they kind of fade away and that sort of thing. So I think it's got to be obviously healthy. I mean, if you've got a family and you never see your family, does that align with your values? Yes or no? Then you can kind of answer that yourself and deep down. But for me, I don't have kids. I don't have many responsibilities. Like, I've kind of created a life that really suits me for right now. And I can work, 8:30 till 9 o'clock. The type of job that I have allows me to work from home. And I think a lot of jobs now with COVID allow you to do that and have that flexibility. And I think businesses are understanding that employees don't always need to be at work. So I think being competitive and working, as long as it aligns with your goals, then I think that it's great. I mean, It gets me out of bed. It gets me.
And was that a tactic? Because we spoke on the phone, like, when you said there was days, and there still are days, when I spoke to Helen about our conversation, and there was one thing you said to me, and I'll be honest, it made me a little bit emotional, because I know I've been there. When you said you'd go, I don't feel like I've done anything today. And I went, no, you're wrong. You got up. And it's just, sometimes those little wins for you are just, people, like, it gets back to the 15-year-old self, just to get up, put your clothes on and go to work. If I do a shit day of work, I'm doing more than what I planned on not even getting up at all. So I'm here. Yeah. Were there days like that you just went, you were hard on yourself, but now if you have that day, you go, well, this is what I did right. I'm not going to focus on what I did wrong.
Yeah. I think there was a saying, so have you seen Finding Nemo?
Yeah. Yes. I have kids.
So I love that movie. Dory, the little mantra that she's got, how she's like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. That was a big thing. And for some reason, it's always been on repeat in my head, is just keep swimming. And so I suppose in the adult term, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I suppose each day, that's just what I tried to do, was just think about what I had to do in that day and not worry about yesterday, not worry about tomorrow, just worry about where you are today and be focused and even laser focused on what you're doing. And the things that I suppose helped me was I would listen to, I think her name's, I'm really bad with names, Louise Hay on YouTube. So she talks about positive affirmations, and I used to journal and write out the affirmations as she was saying them, and that would really help. But now what really helps me is reflecting on my day and going, okay, I made X amount of calls, I signed X amount of properties, I rode, I went to the gym. There's like an ideal day in my head of what I know makes me feel great. So yeah,
If you don't get that ideal day anymore, is it as big a deal as it was 4 years ago?
No, because I go, that's okay. I'll just do it
tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there was a time where that was a big deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would like cry myself to sleep because I would feel like shit. Because you just be like, it's like the world was like here.
Because in your mind, if you didn't make that day, you weren't worth being here, I guess, to a point.
Yeah, I'd just go home and go to bed. So I would finish at 5, and I'd be home by 5:30, and I would be in bed by like 5:35, 5:40.
Yeah.
And then Jordan would come home and drag me out of bed and say, you need to have dinner and you need to stay awake so that you can sleep later. But I'm a big sleeper. When I'm stressed, I can sleep all day and all night.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely not as hard on myself now. If I don't have a great day, I find what helps me is I go, okay, today wasn't great, whatever. I'm still here. I still lived a day that someone else would be very grateful for. So what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do now is write my ideal day for tomorrow. And then as I'm going through the day, I'll make a conscious effort to tick things off in my head or on paper or whatever.
Have you ever looked back on those journals?
Yeah. I still have
Do you look and go, oh, I really was losing it?
Yeah. Like I have journals of like pages and pages of affirmations, and I don't know if people have done those before, but it's like, I am beautiful, I am intelligent, I can do whatever I want to do, those sorts of things. And when you read them, you're like, oh, it sounds a bit weird, but when you need it, like you need it. So yeah, and that's probably something that I would say to my 15-year-old self again, is buy yourself a journal, stick your AirPods in, not your old ones, and
around her, she'll cut those things.
and just journal and write affirmations. If you feel silly saying it to yourself in your head, just write it out because it's still in your subconscious.
So I'll lead on to our next one, the whole COVID situation. Now, we were looking at pulling up the COVID conversations, but events of the last few weeks we've gone, oh, maybe we need to keep going with these.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I am so glad we did, or else I wouldn't have interviewed you. If you were in a job where you would have lost said job from COVID, would that have been, what would you say, the beginning of a downward spiral? Because you keep talking about how much work is for you to just be a part of your day.
Yeah.
You lost that job, and even working from home, is working from home something that you struggle with because you're not in an environment, like it's all on you? How does that go with you?
So I, like at the start of COVID, I was quite grateful that I still had a job. And I was still going to the office because we were classed as essential services. And then the transition to going from the office to working from home, I was actually pretty gutted. And I felt like I'd kind of lost my footing, and it kind of threw me quite a bit. But then I was like, oh, I just have to be grateful that I still have a job and just have to really remember that. But I wasn't a great time. But again, I still had my job and those sorts of things. But I think if I didn't have my job, then yes, I would have struggled. But I think that I mean, I can only talk on hypothetical, but I think I would have gone and applied for as many jobs as I could, whether it's stacking shelves or working at a servo or whatever. That's always been important to me, is to be working.
Work.
Yeah, yeah. So I probably would have tried to get a job somewhere else.
There's so many people, Alex, that like, mental health has become such a focal point during COVID and everything associated with it. Somebody who's essentially been there, done that, got the t-shirt, if you could put advice into a couple of sentences, what would you say for people that are like struggling with their mental health around the COVID side of things?
I can only sort of talk about, I guess, what I would try to do. I think gratitude is a really important thing. I think routine is a really important thing. Getting out of bed at the same day, eating at the same time, exercising and getting outside. But it's that old saying, this too shall pass. And then the other saying of just keep swimming, and putting one foot in front of the other. Like what you said before, even if it's just you getting out of bed in the morning, like that's an achievement. Fucking woohoo, go you. And that's totally cool if that's all you've done for the day.
Yeah.
And I think just like be nice to yourself. I look back and I just go, I wasn't nice to myself at all. And I think people have to be really patient and understanding with themselves and give yourself a fucking break. Like, we're so hard on ourselves. You would never speak to Helen, for example, how you might have spoken to yourself internally at some stages.
She beat the shit out of me. I taught her how to fight. It was the worst mistake I ever made.
I know, no one wants to meet her in the car park. But yeah, I think that those points are, like, I feel a little bit silly because I don't want to sing like I know it all or anything like that. Like, I definitely still have days where I think you've got some
pretty good street cred, champion. I think you can. I think it's like we said before. I mean, there's people who have read all this stuff in a book, and then there's people that have lived it. And I've always been that person that, you can go to uni for years upon years and study this stuff, but if you've never had anything to really draw on as a personal experience,
yeah,
I'm going to believe the person who's been there, done that, over the person that's watched it on YouTube a few times and just gone through it that way.
Yeah. There was I would struggle to track my habits because I'm quite a visual person.
Yeah.
So I went out. This is from James Clear as well. So he there's an audio book that I listened to, and he talks about habit tracking and those sorts of things. And he talks about moving an object. So say, for example, if I went for a run today, then I get to move that AirPod there.
Yeah.
And then it stays there. And then the next day, if I go for another run, then I get to put another one there. So anyway, I went out and I bought 2 jars and a whole bunch of marbles because I struggled to go to the gym. And I put all the marbles into one jar, and then I went, okay, by the end of the month, I want 15 marbles in this jar. So each day that I went, I would move a marble over. And it was something that I could see visually and then actually pour out at the end of the month and go, oh, I fucked that up. That's okay. I can reset next month.
That's unreal.
Yeah. Like, so that I found really helped me, and I still have them and I'm still doing it now. But just like get fun. I found get fun with it, and like you can do interactive stuff. And even if it's, I don't know, doing, different things with it.
The final, well, one of the final things, because I could pick your brain for hours. The final thing, or one of the final things, again, I Helen maybe has told you or hasn't told you, I am an immense over-analyzer and overthinker. So I hung up the phone from you the other day and I analysed that whole conversation right through my head. And I said there was that whole thing about you getting up out of bed. And then the other thing that I guess was really there where you said, we need to talk about this more. We don't talk about this enough. And I know you were nervous about doing this interview today. You surprised me, actually. You said you're only a 7 out of 10. I was expecting at least an 8, 8.5. I knew you wouldn't be a 10, but that was something that really stuck in my head. We don't talk about this enough. Now, mental health over the past, I think I said to you, like, when I had stuff initially when I was young, the only person that, could find to go and talk to was a priest, or there was no counselling groups. Our guidance counsellor, all they did at high school was help us pick what subjects we were going to do. There was no talk about that. Even in today's society, as much as we are talking about it, do you think we still aren't talking about it enough?
No.
Why?
I think I even said to you on the phone the other day, sometimes when I feel low, even now, I think to myself, I really want to talk to someone. And then I go,
Who is that?
Oh, I go, no, I won't do that because I'll feel like an idiot tomorrow when I reflect on that. Or they're busy. They've got their own stuff to deal with. And I think, I think people have definitely gotten a lot better with saying, hey, are you okay? But I think the people who need help maybe haven't gotten comfortable with having the conversations of saying, hey, no, I'm not okay.
Because I was just about to say, and this is again just a personal opinion, if someone once said to me, if you ask me if I'm okay, that's fine, but you're going to have to get ready for me to possibly say no, and then you've got to go from there. Will people come up and still ask, like there are people who know your background, they can see you're a bit off, will they say, are you okay? Are you still are you comfortable now saying, no, I'm actually not okay today, I'm not doing okay? But when are you okay?
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on, like, I still pick and choose who I feel like having that conversation with.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to trust that that information isn't being taken and used as something else. So I think people have a natural gut instinct to judge that, but there's definitely people that I go, I'm not okay, like I feel like shit. One of my best friends, Justine, I'll call her and just be like, I feel like shit today. And she's like, yeah, me too. I've looked after like 21 kids today.
You think you got problems.
But they're definitely conversations that I feel a lot more comfortable speaking about now because there's not so much of a stigma behind it in my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that the conversations are being had enough. I look back and I don't blame myself. Like I definitely don't blame myself and I understand it. But I think that I could have stopped my dad from committing suicide if I had done things different. And I know that's probably not the healthiest thing, but it makes me hyper conscious to, I suppose, the future if I get that inkling.
Was there a period you did blame yourself a little bit?
Well, so Dad and I spent the last day that he was here together and we had some pretty in-depth conversations. It wasn't as if it happened and I had no understanding of the gravity of the situation that had just happened. So I understood it. I didn't blame myself. I just got it.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't, like I said before, I wasn't angry at him. I just wish that it didn't happen. I wish that he was still here, but I get it. I understand it. Yeah.
Because there's only so many years that you can start to keep throwing that around in your head, isn't there?
Yeah.
What happens? I guess you're 27. You got a lot of more years to do good. What happens now? You just keep swimming?
Well, I think it's something that I'll definitely always, I don't know if battle's the right word, but it's something that I'll always come across that, rears its head every now and then. I go, oh, you're fucking back. Like, but I think it's just having that understanding and being patient. Or for me, I need to be patient with myself and understand that you can't cure those memories. You can't take those memories away. They're always going to be there. It was
because
only
there's so many good times with your father that you don't want to forget either.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I do remember a lot of what I had seen in those final moments. And, I remember sitting next to him while the police had cut him down, and he was on the garage floor with a sheet over him by himself. And that broke me. And when I realized that he hadn't gone to the hospital because the morgue comes, when I realized that, I went and sat next to him and held his hand. I was terrified of what was under the blanket, so I didn't pull it back, but I held his hand through the sheet. And I would just wish that he was still here so that I could go, it's going to be okay. And I think because I've been on the other side of that and I've seen that it can be okay, that I understand that the time that we have here is so precious, and it's, how do I put it? He took a massive, massive piece of my heart with him, and anyone that thinks about doing that will take a huge part of everyone's heart that's around them, whether they believe that or not. But he clearly felt very, very alone. But if he had just walked down the hall, knocked on my door, woke me up and said, hey, I need to have a chat, I'm not okay, he'd still be here. Yeah. I can't remember what your question was, but that's where I went.
Man, God, you nearly got me then. It took me back to a conversation I had. A friend of mine, very good friend of mine, she committed suicide when she was 17. We were in high school together.
Yeah.
And it's that same thing, like if I had just, it's the regret, it's everything. And I think every story like this is similar in its own way. Bonnie and I were thick as thieves, but in that few days prior, there'd been some arguments and blues. And it's the thing you carry forever. Like I just go, if we had just managed to maybe sort that out, maybe you wouldn't still here, but if I just had you for just another day.
Yeah.
Another day. And getting back to the barbecue thing, it's that same thing. There's so many questions you want to ask, but then you also, it's been so long, you go, can we just sit and have a beer? Can we let's just talk shit, But look, I think you are the epitome of amazing human being. I think you have a story that hopefully one day you share on a much bigger medium than just my silly COVID conversations. But please make sure you give me cred. And I want to thank you for being so open, for being so honest. I want to make sure that actually just before we finish, there is one thing we need to discuss. You are quite the prankster in your office.
Yeah.
What's your what's your piece de resistance? What's your best ever? What's your best ever that you did?
That I've done.
Mm.
There's been a couple, but I think probably cutting my boss's earphones. So what you were talking about, there's not even a pair. We don't even have them in this house. She had the normal earphones, and anyway, she didn't know this, but I had prior gone out and bought her AirPods, and I did. And I just went up beside her while she was on the phone and cut them and filmed it all and made a video. Anyway, it's on my Facebook. But that was probably the best because I took something away from her, but I also gave her, we also gave her something.
Thank God.
Yeah, and then other than that, it's probably hiding in the Shred-X bin and scaring the shit out of someone as they walked past, which also was filmed. But I think I've really embraced that side of myself because I think laughter and having fun is a really, really good way to combat, that feeling of worthlessness and that sort of thing, even if it's just a couple of hours while you're at work and there's a pest in the office. Like, as long as you have a couple of laughs while you're there, I think that's important as well.
I think you're onto something there, champ. Mm-hmm. But look, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No, thank you. I know this was tough for you, and I really, really appreciate your time, as I assure a lot of other people are. So if you want to listen to other conversations that are probably, I don't know if they're as good as Alex's, but they're pretty good, go to my YouTube channel. It's really difficult. It's Kyl Reber. No, there's not an E. Yes, that's how it's meant to be spelled. No, I know that's not how other people spell it. That's just how it is. You can also find us on Facebook. You can also find us on the website, kylreber.com.au. And I run this little place called Chikara Martial Arts, or CMA. We teach people how to be better. Alex, again, thank you. I'm giving you a virtual, really squeezing hug right now. All right? You're a champion. You're a champion. We will wrap it up there now. You and I are going to have a little chat afterwards. But guys, thanks for listening so much. As I said, I'm really grateful for having had the opportunity to do this one. Thank you, guys, and we will see you later.